Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk about a material that is so common, so everywhere, you probably don't even notice it anymore. But honestly, concrete is probably the single most important substance on our planet. It is the invisible supermaterial holding our entire modern world together. And believe me, its story is absolutely incredible.
First things first, I really want us to get a handle on just how massive concrete's impact really is. It's so easy to just walk past it and not think twice, but the scale of its uses, well, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Get this, it is the second most used substance on Earth. The only thing we use more of is water. Just let that sink in for a second. After the one thing we literally need to survive, we use more of this man-made rock than anything else on the entire planet. That little fact kind of changes how you see everything.
And here's why. Think about it. From the sidewalk right outside your door, to the bridges you drive over, to the massive skyscrapers that just seem to defy gravity, this simple-looking material is the literal foundation of modern civilization. It is everywhere.
So what is it really? Well, in the simplest terms, concrete is just a mix of a few basic things. You've got your aggregate, which is just a fancy word for sand, gravel, and crushed rocks. Then you have cement, which is the magic ingredient that acts like a super strong glue. And finally, you just add water, which kicks off a chemical reaction that makes the whole thing harden into a solid stone-like mass. Simple, right?
But here's the thing. Concrete is not a modern invention. Not even close. To really understand where it comes from, we need to jump in our time machine and go back about 2,000 years to the Roman Empire, because they were the first true masters of concrete, and they absolutely changed the world with it.
And if you want proof of their genius, you only have to look at one building, the Pantheon in Rome. I mean, from the outside, you can see its immense scale, but it's when you step inside and look up at that famous dome, that's when you really feel the power of what they created. It is an absolutely jaw-dropping piece of engineering, even by today's standards.
And the word to focus on here is unreinforced. See, modern concrete is almost always filled with steel bars for strength. The Romans didn't have that. They built the largest unreinforced dome on the planet, and it is still standing almost 2,000 years later. That is just staggering. So you have to ask, what was their secret?
Well, they had a secret ingredient, of course. They figured out that by mixing lime with volcanic ash, a material they called pozzolana, they created a kind of cement that was unbelievably strong and durable. It was so good, it could even harden underwater. This was a total game changer, allowing them to build massive harbors, bridges, and aqueducts like never before.
You know, their whole approach was just fundamentally different from how we do things. The Romans would hand layer their concrete with big chunks of rubble, almost like building a super strong stone sandwich. Today we use what's called Portland cement. We pour it as a liquid and we stick steel bars inside it to give it extra strength.
But here's the kicker. In some ways, the Roman stuff was actually better. Modern science has discovered that their volcanic ash recipe created a concrete with some incredible properties. It was way more resistant to cracking, it held up way better against corrosive seawater, and, get this, it even seems to have this wild ability to self-heal small cracks over time. That's a superpower that scientists today are still trying to figure out how to replicate.
So after the Roman Empire fell, this amazing knowledge was pretty much lost for over 1,000 years, whole millennium. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that people rediscovered its potential and gave it a couple of crucial upgrades that created the concrete we all know and use today. So its comeback started kind of slowly. First, in the 1700s, an engineer named John Smeaton figured out how to make a concrete that would harden underwater for building a lighthouse. Then, in 1824, Joseph Aspend patented Portland cement, and that basically became the new standard. But the final really crucial invention, the one that unlocked concrete's true power, that came in 1849 from a guy named Joseph Monnier. And that brings us to the big question, right? What was his invention? What was the one thing that took concrete from an ancient marvel to the powerhouse material of the modern world?
The answer? Steel reinforcement. See, concrete is incredibly strong when you squeeze it. That's called compressive strength. But it's actually pretty weak when you try to pull it apart. That's tensile strength. By embedding steel bars, or rebar, inside the concrete, you get the best of both worlds. You get the compressive strength of concrete with the tensile strength of steel. This brilliant combo is what lets us build the massive skyscrapers and long bridges we see today.
Okay, so what exactly goes into the concrete we use now? Let's quickly break down that simple but super powerful recipe.
It still comes down to those same three key parts. First, you've got the aggregate, which is basically the filler and makes up most of the volume. Second, you have the cement, the all-important glue that holds it together.
And third, you add water, which is the catalyst that kicks off that chemical reaction, called hydration, that makes the whole mix harden up.
And this chart really shows you the proportions. As you can see, the vast majority of concrete, we're talking around 70%, is just rocks and sand. The cement and water, the active ingredients, they actually make up a much smaller piece of the pie.
But here's where it gets really cool. Today, we can also add a bunch of spices to the recipe. These are called chemical admixtures. And these things give concrete all kinds of superpowers. We can add stuff to make it set faster in the cold or slower in the heat. We can make it flow like water to fill really complex shapes, or even add microscopic air bubbles to protect it from freezing and thawing. This incredible versatility is what makes modern concrete so useful for pretty much anything.
So where does this ancient material go from here? Well, concrete is still evolving, and engineers are designing it right now to build the world of tomorrow.
Nowadays, making concrete is a really high-tech process. In these places, called batch plants, computers measure every single ingredient with incredible precision. This lets them create totally custom recipes designed for very specific jobs, making sure the quality and consistency is perfect every single time.
And probably one of the biggest innovations happening right now is tackling concrete's environmental footprint. You see, making that cement powder is very energy intensive. So engineers are developing green concrete by replacing some of the cement with recycled industrial waste, like fly ash from power plants or slag from steel mills. It's a really brilliant way to recycle and dramatically lower concrete's carbon footprint, making our most used material a whole lot more sustainable.
Which kind of brings us full circle. We've traced this incredible material all the way from ancient Roman domes built with volcanic ash to modern steel-reinforced skyscrapers that are fine-tuned with chemicals and recycled materials. It really makes you wonder, what's next? What are we going to build with this humble yet unbelievably powerful material?